Good morning, folks. We are apparently live. Hello. Test 1, 2, 1, 2. Test here. Here's our sound check. That should wake some people up. What does that sound? There. Good morning. Looks like we have 8 live viewers on. Who do we have on this morning? Hello. Okay, good morning. We are at it. Looks like 7:32 a.m. Actually, 7:31 a.m. Maybe my watch is slightly fast. We have apparently about 12 live viewers on this morning. Last week, I think in 3 minutes, we had 30 some live viewers. So I would assume the notification is probably going out. Good morning. My name is Mike Seaclander. We're talking about some really cool stuff today. We're going to cover long gun, PCC, rifles. So for those of you that are jumping on Facebook and saying, hey, check this live show out, we're talking about shooting a long gun at what I would call CQB distances or close quarter competition distances for speeds. We're talking about how you take these guns and mount them to your shoulder faster. How do you shoot them faster? How do you control the recoil, etc. Of course, I know I'm going to have a bunch of folks jumping on. I know a lot of those folks are going to be coin members. So good morning, coin members. I know a lot of other folks jumping on are going to be live fire members. And I see actually a bunch of live fire members on right now. Eric, I responded to your question this morning on live fire. If you're not on live fire, why not? I actually have something I want to admit. It's so funny. I removed Instagram from my phone. I do have Facebook market on my phone because I check for weight equipment and stuff like that, but I don't use it as far as social. And the other day I got on my iPad and I'm scrolling through the iPad. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I still have Instagram on my iPad. Well, I might as well just click on it and see what happens. And it was instant. It was like my brain just said, click on that thing and open it. And I'm sure I would have sat there and scrolled through it. And luckily I was logged out. So we'll have to admit that. But otherwise, I have removed all social. I'm not telling you to do so. But what I am asking those of you, the 44 live viewers right now, and maybe 144 live viewers here in a second, is to check out Livefire Social. If you're not on Livefire Social, you need to be. It's free. It's robust. It is the positive place to be on the internet. I'm not going to sit here and get on my horn and call it to the nation, because those of you that are on understand that. Anyways, please share it. If you're watching right now, get on your social and do a screenshot of Livefire, maybe some of the positivity over there, some of the gun posts, some of the training posts, and tell people, hey, if you're not on Livefire Social, get over on Livefire Social. Who do we have on this morning? And we'll talk about safety here in a second. Doug Grigg was the first one on. Good morning, sir. How are you? Hey, good morning, Chester Howe. Good morning, Jedi, he says. Jim from Pennsylvania, how are you, sir? Hey, good morning, Frank. Hope I think rehab is going okay. Saw you posted something about that. Donald Green. Occupied Virginia's in the house. Brian, good morning, sir. Semper. Eric, of course, is on. Kevin Park. Heine is on. Good morning. We've seen you on the last several live streams. Hello. Kevin is in Antonio, and Heine, I think, is in maybe Finland. Is that right? Hopefully. Hey, good morning, Rudy. How are you, sir? Joey Russo. Good morning, sir. Coin number 175. That's probably one of the lowest coin numbers on right now, Joey. I am so proud of you. Nice to have you on, man. Hope you're doing well, brother. Joe, good morning, sir. How are you? Daniel, Chester, Jeremiah, good morning. Jeff Nelson. Hey, dude. Oh, my gosh. On the live. And, of course, Jeff Nelson is all over live fire. Kip is on. Mr. John Shriver. Don is on. How are you? From Montana. I bet it's cold up in Montana. Hey, Vicky, how are you? Good morning. Awesome. Okay, folks, that's it. We have almost 60 live viewers. Do me a favor. Those of you that have been with me a long time know I'm going to ask you to click the like or the share button real quickly. Just added to a couple of the groups. while we're doing our safety briefing. Those of you that have been on like 50 times with me probably don't need to watch the safety briefing. For all of you that are on, though, safety is our #1 concern. So if you're going to be handling any of your long guns, I have 3 separate long guns with me today. I have my 2 PCCs. This is my lower profile PCC, clear and empty. This PCC, check this bad boy out. Whoa, tell me that's not beautiful. That is clear and empty as well. This actually is a different setup. I have an aluminum shroud on this one. We could talk a little bit about PCC setup today. Got a little bit different latch on it, and we'll talk about that. I've got a different color optic. We can talk about that. But this is unloaded and clear as well. And just in case we get into it, I actually have one of my training rifles, one of my defensive rifles, 223. This guy is unloaded and clear as well. And you can see how I have my switch and my light and stuff set up. So I brought this just in case we want to talk defensive rifle. But today's focus is really the speed mount, speed shooting. So do me a favor, if you're gonna do anything with your long guns, make sure they're unloaded. Make sure you have a safe backstop in your area where if you happen to make the worst mistake in the world, you would fire a round into that. Okay. If you don't know who I am, folks, if you're jumping on, my name is Mike Seeklander. I'm a professional shooter and instructor. You can learn more about me on MikeSeeklander.com. We're talking about PCC and rifle speed tips. For those of you that are jumping on as well, please jump on Livefire. Give me a follow on Livefire. I will give you a follow back, and I promise you, you will really enjoy the community there. We are growing by lots and lots and lots of folks every single day. So maybe some of those Instagram posts where I said, "Hey, I'm out. I'm done. I'm done curating content and trying to hashtag it and @sign it and do all these weird things just so I get 6 people to look at it." Let's move over to social that cares about gun owning, to a community. And by the way, it's, like I said, the most positive place on the internet. Okay, we're going to be talking about speed today. Of course, when we're talking about speed, we need to understand that there are some things that allow us to be fast with the PCC and or rifle, and some things that limit our speed. Right? Now, when we're talking about shooting any kind of long gun, from a rifle to a PCC to a shotgun, most of the principles of shooting that gun at speed apply to any system, right? So if I talk to you about the recoil control properties of my PCC, that would apply to Benelli M4, for example, or Benelli M2. But the recoil that the system causes, a 308 AR type system is going to recoil a lot more than a 223. Believe it or not, a 9mm PCC, pistol caliber carbine, is going to recoil or hit harder than a standard AR gas gun. Typically, when we find something that's direct blowback or direct pressure, where it cycles without the gas, it's going to feel like it hits a little bit harder. So just be mindful of that. One of the things that, before we get into the speed tips, what I want to talk to you about is I use PCCs in training a ton. Even if I'm getting ready for a rifle class, I may use my PCCs to practice and prepare for that rifle class because this allows me to shoot 9mm, which is a little bit cheaper for me and I have more of, but it also allows me to run and do all of the same close drills with steel that I would with my handgun. So if I'm in a handgun training session, I want to get my rifle skills up to speed, oftentimes I will grab a PCC and do it, okay? So just be mindful of that. By the way, those of you that are just jumping on, looks like we got 72 live viewers. I do have a personal goal today. I'd love to hit 175. We have hit 150 in the last few weeks. I'd love to push it up by 25. So if those of you that are jumping on have a friend, you could text and say, "Hey, this dude is live on Facebook. Go to this page and check him out. Give him a follow. That would be awesome." If you have an email person, you can send an email or an email list or a group. Please share it, and I'd love to see 175 is my live viewer goals today. Okay, so let's talk about point number 1, gun contact, right? So when we're talking about gun contact, we're talking about the initial contact of what I call the operating hand and the working hand. So let me define what I call those two hands. The operating hand is the hand that operates the safety, right? Operates the safety, and it operates the trigger, right? Oftentimes, we may say with a handgun, strong hand, support hand, strong hand, weak hand for some of you, which makes sense. I'm a right-handed shooter. My strong hand is going to be my right hand. My left hand is going to be my support hand. But in reality, when I'm shooting a long gun, I may shoot the long gun off my right shoulder, or I may shoot it off my left shoulder. So in this case, this is the operating hand. This is the working hand, right? If I switch shoulders, now my right hand is my operating hand. My left hand is my working hand. So when I say working, I'm talking about the working hand will do all of the work with the magazines, with the charging handle, with inserting, removing, ripping, as well as the bolt release, right? That's the one thing that the operating hand doesn't do, is it doesn't operate the bolt release. Now, here's some of the rules I'd like you to consider following. The operating hand goes nice and high on the pistol grip, and this is where it lives, right? The thumb is going to ride the safety on an AR-type system. If you're running an AK-type system, you may ride the safety with your index finger or different placements. If you're riding a gun like a Benelli or whatever else, or a shotgun, your index finger or your thumb is typically going to be indexed on the safety itself. So my operating hand goes to the pistol grip itself. Thumb always, always, always rides the safety. And this is where the hand lives. The hand, if I need to work the charging handle or whatever else, doesn't come off that position to work the charging handle or tap the magazine. It lives here. It's the operating hand. It stays there. So if I need to work the charging handle, the working hand, which normally lives up on the handguard, does the work. So the working hand works the charging handle. It may insert a magazine, and it may release the bolt. The working hand also helps lock the bolt to the release, or bolt to the rear. And this is the one time where the operating hand will leave the pistol grip. If I needed to lock the bolt to the rear for whatever reason, I would reach up over the top of the gun, and I would utilize that technique. Now, granted, for those of you that have a rifle set up with a Magpul bad lever, I think it's called battery assistance device, or something that allows you to manipulate a device in your trigger guard to lock the bolt to the rear. In that particular case, my working hand, my operating hand would never leave this position. But otherwise, I would like you to consider learning to keep your operating hand in the position on the pistol grip, right? And then the working hand does everything else. So when you're doing your dry fire reps and you're dry firing and firing your shots, then you're going to use your working hand to work the bolt. Operating hand operates the safety and the trigger to set up again. Okay, so consider that. So my rule is operating hand lives and stays there. Working hand will do whatever it needs to do the work. So let's also talk about hand contact when I'm shooting, right? One of the things that I see is this hand, the lead hand on the handguard, typically in a position that is farther to the rear than it should be. So here's the general rule that I like to follow. If this were a handgun, right, I may shoot it in this position. This is actually not that heavy. This might be a good idea. Just kidding, right? So if I simply take the rifle and bring it straight back to my chest, about the same length of position, right, that my left hand would be on a handgun if I'm shooting it at extension, is about the same spot that I will have it on the handguard. Now notice my elbow is still slightly bent, but I'm certainly I'm having trouble talking this morning. Maybe I need a sip of coffee. I'm certainly not reaching back and grabbing the gun back here. This is a less efficient spot for your working hand to be because it doesn't allow you to drive the gun as fast as a farther contact position. So for me, like I said, it's about the same position that it would be if I was shooting a handgun with two hands, right? So that's all I'm doing. Okay, so that's where the two hands live. By the way, we have 88 live viewers on right now. 88 live viewers. Hey, Juicy, I see you jumping on. Is it Juicy or Juicy from Finland or Sweden? Or I need to go do a class up in that area. By the way, John Ring asks, you're putting your best home defense caliber 9.556 or 6.5. Boy, John, that's a completely different subject. I like the question, though. I have to admit, I like it a lot. There is no better there. I would tell you that when we're talking about home defense type setup, a 9mm allows me to potentially run the same self-defense ammo in my handgun, maybe even the same magazines if I carry a Glock on a regular basis. And I can set up a good PCC carbine, or maybe a shorter version of a PCC pistol with a light and an optic on it or whatever else. And the noise that gun would emit would probably be acceptable without a suppressor. If this is my home defense option, right? 223. Notice that my barrel is set up and threaded for a suppressor. So if I'm like placing this in the corner of my room and this is my home defense long gun, which by the way, I probably wouldn't grab a long gun in most cases, it would absolutely be suppressed. As far as 6.5 Creedmoor, I don't own a lot of calibers other than 223 and 9mm for PCC. You know, I do own a 308 AR. I don't think that would be a home defense type setup that I would run. You know, I own a 300 Hammer made by Wilson Combat. That's more of a hunting type rifle, hunting AR system, which is kind of how it's designed. So I don't own a 6.5 Creedmoor. I don't get into a lot of other calibers, mainly because the 9mm 223 ammo is so available and so successful. I don't find a reason to deviate away from it. So just a thought there. Okay, back at it. So we're talking about the working hand, right? And the other hand, where they go. One more thing about this, the operating hand, I see a lot of folks do this with the finger, right? So they point the finger forward. And the theory is, if I point the finger at something, that automatically indexes and helps me index where the actual long gun is pointing. I don't have a problem with that. I personally don't find that helps me point. Like I know where the rifle's pointing without doing this, right? The downside to this is, for those of you that are going to be, you know, utilizing a rifle or a system for some sort of bracing work, like in 3-gun or maybe PCC even, we may brace up against, you know, an obstacle. And what I found is if that finger is up there, if I wanted to drive the gun up and into a brace, just imagine the edge of a wall here, right? That finger gets in the way. Where I can brace very quickly by rotating the thumb out, driving the thumb into the obstacle and bracing very quickly without this finger getting in the way. So I'm not personally running my finger there. That doesn't have a lot of, it doesn't offer me much in return of what's going on itself, okay? So let's talk about the lower body structure, because one of the things about structure is, and you know, when we talk about structure, let's define that. We're talking about, you know, your stance, your position. But I think with a long gun, people forget about the importance of what the lower body's doing. And let me give you a little bit of a downward camera angle, right? And I want to back away. I know you can hear me okay. So the first thing that I want you to pay attention to is my hips are always going to be as square as I can get them. I don't necessarily care where your feet are. What I care is that the hips are generally square to the target versus bladed off. The second my hips start to blade off, that pulls my shoulders in this direction. And the more my shoulders are bladed, the more the recoil affects my upper body as I shoot. So if I were to shoot very, very quickly with bladed shoulders, because instead of my shoulders being as square as possible, they're bladed, the gun in recoil can then turn my body as it makes impact easier. The more square I can keep my shoulders to the target, the better off I am, right? So to create that squareness, for me, I'm going to square and have my hips relatively square as well. If my hips are pretty square to the target or target array I'm shooting at, right, then my shoulders will be pretty square to the target where I'm shooting at. Now, my shoulders may not always be perfectly square. We'll address that when we talk about drop, drive, pull, press. But generally speaking, I want you to consider keeping your shoulders square. One more thing, and I want to give you a little bit more camera angle with my feet. Sometimes I found shooters that take, for example, their right foot and they pivot out like this. Watch what the hips do. Square. I can step back and be pretty square. Watch the foot. Hips are turning. So when you have that foot turned out like this, it already starts to turn the hips. They're facing this way now versus this way, right? And that makes all the difference in the world. So I would be very, very cautious to keep your lower body as square as you can, meaning your hips. Your feet are going to do whatever the feet are going to do what they need to do based on what you're doing. So if I'm running into position and I need to stop in this position, well, my right foot is slightly forward, right? Because my body weight is going that way. But if you look down at my hips are still pretty square. I didn't blade the hips off, right? And that squaring of the hips, believe it or not, really affects your ability to control the recoil of the PCC or rifle at higher speeds. Think about this. We're trying to create positive neutral control. And I know some of you have probably asked some questions. I'll get to those in a second. Positive neutral control means that we're building a structure that positively controls the rifle or carbine, but it's neutral in the manner that when the recoil force hits our body, the gun recovers very neutrally. We're not pulling or pushing or driving the rifle in any direction. Because if we're pulling or pushing or driving the rifle or carbine in any direction, we're going to lose the ability to shoot at our fastest speeds and have the dot or the sights recover very, very quickly. And that's really, really important to me. We'll talk about upper body contact in a second, but I want to talk about lower body. And I want to talk about one more thing that's critically important, and that's the relationship of the hips and the shoulders. So if I were to get into a good shooting stance and I were to fire a couple shots, I want you to pay attention to my upper body. Right? So if you look at my upper body position, I'm almost like I'm sticking my butt out like I'm doing a squat, right? But camera adjustment. Someday I'm going to get an automatic camera, right? Hey, Steve Washington is on this morning. Good morning. Morning, Steve Washington. Point number 2003. And Chester, I'll address your question here in 1 second. But I want you to pay attention to the upper body, right? The upper body is forward. So if you look at my relationship of my shoulders and my hips, my upper body angle is always forward and over my hips. If you shoot from a very upright position, the recoil, right? The recoil in your shoulders, right? So this is your shoulders, will push the shoulders to the rear. And the more the angle increases, this is simple physics, this is leverage, right? The more the shoulders continue to push to the rear, and the more the gun rises and doesn't return. So the upper body angle has to be aggressive and forward of the lower body. A lot of folks used to say, well, get your nose over your toes, which is true. But when I do this, I don't want to just get my nose over my toes, but I also want to counterbalance with my butt, right? So I'm getting my shoulders forward and my butt back. Now, in terms of your question, Chester, how do you control the recoil of 308? By stepping the foot back. The recoil is controlled with the upper body weight. It is not controlled with my foot position. But if I needed to step back for a 308 or a 12 gauge, for example, at speed, I'll post a video probably on live fire today of me shooting a Benelli M4 at speed. I may do something like this. I may take this foot, this bracing foot, and I might step back. And I'm not sure, Chester, if you just jumped on or if you missed what I was talking about earlier. Stepping back is not a problem, right? Stepping back and pivoting the foot out, which turns the hips. is the problem, because now I turn my shoulders, and now naturally the recoil is going to push me like this. If I can keep my hips square, my shoulder is then square, and I'm really locking the gun in. So if I literally keeping the hips square and the shoulders more square or squarer, and the body weight in front of the hips will give you a dramatic improvement in recoil control. So if you decide you have to step back, and there's some lighter shooters, guys that don't weigh a lot, they're not as big as me, female shooters that maybe are a little bit lighter, that simply have to step back and brace a little bit with that foot. But the key is, if the foot comes back, the toe should stay pointed toward the target. If the toe starts to flare out, that will turn the hips. You can do that while you're watching the live stream. Stand up and step back with your foot, but point the toe directly at the screen that you're watching, and then take your right toe, for example, and pivot it out, right? And then you're going to feel your hips turn, right? So right now I'm stepping back, way back, but my toe's pointed there. If I point my toe out, it turns my hips, right? Because of the way your hip joint is. And that'll make a big difference. Hey, by the way, we're 92 live viewers. We're almost at 100. My goal is 175 today. Hey, the Bang Sefastana. Oh my gosh, South Africa. It is 7:30 or 7:56 a.m. Good morning, sir. James Trombley's on. Oh my gosh, 1702. How are you, sir? Harry McGuffey. Good morning, sir. How are you, man? Nicole, good to see you as well. Hello, Lori. Hanu is on from Finland. Snowstorms. Man, I bet you're in a beautiful spot. It's snowing, and I need to go over there. I've never been over there, by the way. Hey, if you haven't clicked the share button, if you're in Finland, click the share button. If you're in Texas, click the share button. If you're in Alabama, click it. Anywhere you are, click it, because my goal is 175 live views today. If you don't want to click share, click like, because if you click like, then that tells Facebook, hey, somebody likes it or loves it, and I'm going to show it to other people because it must be popular. And remember, that's Facebook's job, is to keep people on their app. So if I do a good job, they will show me to other people that might learn something from this live stream. Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions. Good morning. Hey, from Pakistan. Wow. Umair from Pakistan. Good morning, sir. And British Columbia. Wow. Canada. I love it, Ed. Good morning. Okay. So let's talk about Chester. I see your comment. I want you to remember this. As a weaver guy that might step back or blade your body off, the blading is not as much the problem. It's the turning of the hips. So even if you step back a little bit, trust me, play with this a little bit. Point the back stepping foot toward the target. It'll make a big difference. And pay attention to what your hips do, if that makes sense. Okay. So we talked about lower body structure. Let's talk about upper body structure. Some key components are, number one, I want to have the stock as centered as possible, right? So I can't totally center the stock. It would do this. It wouldn't make any sense. I couldn't aim the gun. Although maybe if we had like a heads up kind of display, that might be a good idea. Some of you all need to invent that. So the stock is going to be just off center line. Now I understand that if you're in the military or law enforcement and you're wearing a plate carrier, that may dictate where your stock is. So my stock may go from this center position a little farther off, so it might ride just outside of where my plate carrier is. In that case, I may rotate the gun a little bit to try to get the center line of the recoil and the center line of the optic more in front of my face, right? So generally speaking, the stock is going to be centered on my body. Now keep in mind, when I do my mount, I want to mount the gun in a manner where the stock is high enough on my body where there's not a lot of, I don't want you to have to do a lot of turtling of your head. I will tell you to press your face into the cheek weld hard to increase your recoil control. That's part of the drop, dry, pull, press. But I don't want you initially to bring the stock up and have to go way here. And by the way, those of you that have been taught, we need to reach up and touch the charging handle with our nose, that tells me a few things: that you're really turtling your head and your neck, and that your stock is way more collapsed than it should be. Your stock should be extended as long as you can reach the control systems and mount the rifle, because you are in a stronger position when the pistol grip is farther away from your body than closer, right? It'd be like if we did a tug of war and I grabbed back here and you grabbed right here and you started pulling, I would go, whoa, I would lose my advantage, right? So think about where your stock position is. So I want you to consider taking that stock and I want you to extend it all the way out and lock it up, and then see if you can mount and reach the systems. Can you reach the controls, the pistol grip, or whatever else? Now, some of you that have really short arms, or for example, maybe if I'm shooting with a plate carrier and I want to mount the stock on the plate carrier, which I don't think is always the greatest idea if I have the choice, but I may, in that case, take the stock and I may collapse it, one notch, right? And that's it. But generally speaking, my stock is extended all the way, okay? So stock is going to be centered and high, so I don't have to drop my face too much. That's my mounting position, right? And then I'm going to drop, drive, pull, press. Let's walk through those. So when I'm mounting, the stock is centered and high. I'm going to mount the gun to my eye. So now my cheek weld will dictate that my eye is behind the optic. Then I'm going to drop the elbow, drive the shoulder forward, pull the gun into my chest, and press my cheek weld into the gun itself. Drop, drive, pull, press. Drop the elbow, drive the shoulder, pull the gun into my body, press my cheek into the cheek weld, and fire those shots. And when you do that, you should have a very rigid, firm position of control over the carbiner stock itself. So drop, drive, pull, press. Now that was a little bit of a low mount. I mounted the stock just a little bit lower than I wanted to. Now what creates speed in terms of mounting the rifle or the PCC? What gives me speed? And I will tell you, I think about it in two different aspects. Number one, the physical motion or movement of the gun itself. So let's say I'm in the low ready position, right? Maybe this is more of a defensive application. The gun is out of my vision. When I determine I want to fire a shot, I'm aggressively driving the gun up there, right? I'm not going, right, or, hey, let me get it up there and shoot whatever. It's a very fast, physical motion, stock over shoulder. It's a violent snapping or moving of the arms, right? It's like when you draw your handgun, you're drawing and getting the gun out there. I'm taking the rifle and I'm moving it as quickly as possible, right? I mean, it's like literally, it's almost so fast you can hear, right, the bolt in the gun move, right? So speed comes from, number one, moving the gun fast. And then number two, here's the real key secret. I want you to, let me see if you can get this perspective in the camera. You could probably see my eye in the optic. I'm going to shoot dry fire directly at the camera. And I want you to watch where that speed comes from. So it comes from me building that cheek weld as quickly as I possibly can. I'm going to move the gun fast, but I'm also trying to get my eye to this spot as quickly as possible. The faster my eye gets to this spot, the sooner my eye is centered and in front of the optic. The sooner my eye is centered and in front of the optic, the faster I'll be able to find the dot and fire the shot. The same thing would apply. The faster I'll be able to find the dot and fire the shot. That rhymes. The same thing would apply with iron sights. The sooner my cheek gets to the cheek weld, the sooner my face is in front of the iron, the front and rear peeper or the front post sight, and the faster I'm going to be able to find my sight alignment and then fire the shots. But don't forget, right? Speed is also a product of moving fast. I'm not mounting the rifle slow. And I used to go out to, we used to have some defensive rifle classes at the U.S. Shooting Academy. Of course, this is before I left that academy. And I would see a group of students going through the repetitions of working their mounts, and I would jump in and work with them a little bit. And the goal was, we were all starting from 3 different positions, the low ready, the muzzle high position, or maybe the stock over shoulder. There's a reason to work all 3 of those, but on the timer command, my goal was to mount and be firing that shot so fast that the students realized, oh my gosh, this speed is a byproduct of going fast, right? You're like, oh, no kidding, Mike. Duh. Speed is a byproduct of going fast. And a lot of folks, when they're mounting the carbine or the rifle, are not moving the gun as quickly as they possibly can, okay? Let me go back through and see what kind of questions I have. So Doug asks, what about length of pull? Do you recommend pulling an adjustable stock all the way out? Yes. And Doug, I think hopefully, Doug, I'm not going to give you a full answer because I think I just talked about that. I will adjust the stock all the way out, right? So my recommendation is to run the stock all the way out. And if you can mount the rifle, so in other words, your arms are long enough where you can reach all the control systems with a fully extended stock. Fully extended is going to give you better recoil control and more pressure on your body. And we just talked about that, so maybe you put that question up before or after I talked about it, okay? Hey, Francisco from Guatemala, good morning. Hey, Roy, you shared from Charleston, South Carolina. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We broke 100 today, but not even 150, which is so weird. Last week, we were kicking butt 140 people. Hey, good morning, Tamara from California. Nice to see you on. Brian from sunny, cold Texas. Hey, it's cold up here in Oklahoma as well. All right, see what else I have on here. Jason Sherrod, good morning, sir. My Academy class president. Salute to you, sir. Oh, salute to you. Right. Jason Sherrod was on last week. Steve was watching your iPad but could not comment. Okay, let me see what else I have, folks. We have just a few more things I want to talk about. So when I work my drills, let me re-engage that. Live fire and dry fire. Here's a process I will typically go through. Number one, I want to follow my key rules where the working hand and the operating hand stay where they need to. Once again, the operating hand operates all the controls. The working hand works the magazine, works the bolt, drives the front of the gun. It's doing the work all the time, right? So if I'm working on a dry fire series that I like to do, I will work from 3 different start positions, right? So one would be the low ready start position. This may be more of a defensive application. Now, the key here is the buttstock is already in contact with my body, but the gun is out of my vision, so I can see what I need to see. This is probably a position, some of you SWAT team members, military guys, maybe police officers with a patrol rifle. The gun should probably be out of your vision if you have the gun out and deployed, because you want to find the threat and be able to make a decision to fire, right? And then I'll work mounting the PCC or the rifle. When you watch me do this, you probably hear that clicking of the safety. So this is a key component. I am constantly working the safety manipulation. Let me get the arm out of the way here, right? So when I'm bringing the gun up, I'm flipping the safety off, and I tend to like to push the safety down and hold it down. Now this works more so for a semi-auto gun where there's only one selector position. If you're working a full auto gun, be careful you don't slide the selector farther forward than it needs to. But this ensures that safety goes off and stays off. But I tell you, I have been in so many classes where I have a student, they'll mount the rifle and they'll go, pull. They're pulling the trigger and nothing's happening because they didn't practice the aspect of manipulating the safety, right? So I'm mounting the gun, right? Manipulating the safety, fire my shot. Now from here, I have 2 choices. I can either keep the gun up on my shoulder and work the bolt, safety back on, begin the drill again, right? Or I could take the gun, tuck it under my shoulder, and this is going to be most successful or more successful for some of you that have maybe are not quite as strong, or if you're moving. If I am moving, right, and I need to manipulate the gun, I can move and manipulate it better with a little bit of control versus the gun doing this. Now, if you're strong enough, right, to put it up on your shoulder, that's fine. I think the shoulder position is going to be fastest. Keep the gun on your shoulder if you want to be fastest. But some of you, you may not have the ability, so you may need to just do a small tuck where I'm using the tip of the buttstock under my shoulder when I'm manipulating the safe or the charging handle. Safety goes back on, right? Start my drill. So for me, I'll work a 3-position mount. So it'll look like this. Tuck, safety back on. Stock on belt, or some of you may call this the high ready. If you some tactical teams like a muzzle high position, which is perfectly fine. In this case, this lead hand is going to drive the gun. So the motion starts with this hand, not necessarily this hand. So this hand is literally driving out as quickly as possible. Fire my shot, tuck, safety. Then I'll go stock over shoulder. Rotate, safety. So you may say, well, Mike, why are you working stock over shoulder? Well, maybe I had to come into a position where it's a very close range shot. And from there, I go to a longer range shot. Or for those of you that shoot PCC in competition, if we move any distance, I don't want to run into my cabinet, I may fire a shot here and drive the gun. So let me break that down. I'm firing, drive, right? Drive and swing. And then in the next position, right? And then I'll add motion or movement, right? So maybe, right? Tuck, control, priority. So in your dry fire drills, try to mimic what you're doing in matches, right? Stock over shoulder, right? You can do the opposite direction too. Right, so all I'm doing is working that I call that the multi-position mount. Low ready, high ready. And let me address, let me talk real quickly about the high ready. So with this high ready position, there's some guys stock on belt where they will keep the gun horizontal and they'll move it just like this. I have played with both. For me, I find that if I get, because I'm going to aim, in this case, the optic with my right eye. If I line, right, the muzzle up, so right now the muzzle is lined up with the camera in my right eye, right, with what I'm trying to shoot. My stock is still on my belt. I'm rotating the gun out just slightly, and I'm going to start my motion by pushing with this hand. So my left hand is going to push the gun out there. And when my left hand pushes the gun out here, it takes the stock off of my body. And then it goes right to the cheek weld and then back in. And that way I don't drag and get caught up on the stock. I literally take the gun, I push it straight out and fire my shot. Watch again. So I'm pushing the gun straight to where I'm trying to fire that shot. So I'm pushing the gun in the direction I'm trying to mount it, if that makes any sense. Hey, by the way, 110 live viewers. The rear boy. 110 live viewers, and we got 113 likes. Or what is that? Oh, that face that's on Facebook where it goes, what is that? I go, can't believe you're shooting a big long rifle. Scary stuff. Steve, you're welcome. I appreciate it. Harry, you lost the connection. Sorry about that, man. Barberton, Ohio. Good morning, Jeff from Barberton, Ohio. Hey, Lance Breeden. How are you, sir? Nice to see you on, man. All right, folks. 106 live viewers. We've been on for about 45 minutes. We've been talking about PCC, drop, dry, pull, press. We talked about the lower body structure. We talked about the upper body structure. A couple more tips for you, then we'll open it up for Q and A and summarize this. Okay, so two things I want to remind you. Now, you may have heard it. So the two things that I really want to remind you, and I say this because I've seen it happen so much in class, is where the writing of the safety with the strong hand. Number one, if the safety is on and I haven't mounted the rifle or carbine, my strong hand thumb is always writing that safety. Number two, in your dry fire drills, I really want you to practice the aspect of, manipulating that safety off and back on. Now, whether you're manipulating your safety back on with the thumb, for me, there's a little rotation of the hand. So safety off, rotation on. But you can also rotate it back on with your trigger finger. Just be careful not to get it in front. So you may go safety off, back on, safety off, back on, safety off. I like to turn my hand, right? I like to go boom, boom, safety back on, safety back off. Now, how often should you put the safety back on? In a movement, for example. In competition, you're not required. If I fire some shots over here, boom, 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 and I need to run over here, I'm not required to put the safety back on. If you are in the military or law enforcement, you certainly might consider that. I would probably recommend it. Why not try to put the safety on? For those running PCC and ARs in competition, we're just going to go to a very definitive position with our finger. Be careful with what you do with your finger. Like if you ride the release, you can release the magazine. So I typically will go, trigger finger on the trigger finger somewhere up above it, right? There's a spot below it. But here, this could slip inside the trigger pretty easily or get bumped inside the trigger guard pretty easily. So I like to go, fire the gun, real high position, okay? The second thing I want to remind you of is the critical for speed importance beyond structure of the cheek weld. So when I'm working my dry fire drills, I am working the contact of my cheek weld and my chin. Excuse me, my chin. If I'm doing my job and I'm dropping, driving, pulling, I'm doing all that stuff. But if I get the cheek weld up on my cheek in the right spot, man, that dot is exactly what I want it to be. It was actually slightly left there. And what I normally do is I literally find a teeny tiny screw on a light switch or something, and I'll just work on driving that dot to the light switch. Pick on something really small, right? Work your different positions. It's a very, very violent motion or movement, So some of you old dudes and dudettes like me, man, my forearms lit up. Warm those old shoulders up first, right? And last but not least, if you're working, your cheek weld, right? Make sure you add a little bit of movement, right? Because in a match, right, or maybe in real life, you're going to be moving into a position. So you want to work the technique of being able to move in position, settling it up, and then firing a shot, right? So there you have it, folks. We've talked about a lot of things. If you have a question about guns or gear, and by the way, I was going to show you this really quickly, the difference between these two guns. The one on the right, in my right hand, I guess that's gray or greenish, has the standard 14.7 welded comp type barrel. The one on the left has an aluminum shroud and about an 8-inch actual barrel. The shroud actually counts as a barrel as well because it's the same length. What this does, this actually makes the front end of this particular gun a lot lighter. Sometimes I feel like it may recoil a little harder, but I would tell you, if you felt the weight of the gun in this, or the weight of this particular PCC is weighted toward the back. So the front end is very, very light, right? Which means that if the front end is very, very light, I could drive the front end faster within the other gun. So that's what I'm playing with as far as PCC. This is what a lot of guys locally are running. This bad boy is beautiful. I'm also playing with different variations of rubber contact. Like this one feels slightly different because it has those small rubber pieces only on key areas. I'll probably add some more rubber pieces here to, a full grip. This is a very grippy feel to it, right? So if I'm, really gripping and running that gun, I like the way this one feels. So I'm actually playing with that just a little bit. So, all right, folks, let's see what I have as far as questions, and we'll Close it all. So, Roy, any shots in an SBR PCC? I think it's perfectly fine, Roy. I think if you can legally own or possess the short barrel rifle SBR PCC in competition, you can actually compete with it, I think, but you might want to check the rules on that. But I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's great. I think actually I'm not sure if that's the case. I think in USPSA it might have, I don't know if an SBR is legal in certain divisions. Check on that. But if possible, if you can legally run it with the paperwork, then I don't see any downside to it, right? Yeah, jump on that a second. Let's see here. So James says yes. So yes, run it. I think all day long. Hey, hello. An outline, Rod, an outline of my session. Rod, if you're on, Rod Nicolette, if you're on Livefire, message me there or drop me a help email, help@shooting-performance, and I'll see what I get for you. I have some outlines of this material. Of course, the replays, by the way, if you're jumping on right now, 90 of you right now, if you're not on Livefire, there's my closing. Get on Livefire because this replay and all the replays of the other live shows are on Livefire as well. Buttstock on belt, muzzle parallel. James, we talked about that. So if you want to rewind, but I'll readdress that. So stock on belt, I think, is the term. I played with parallel and trying to bring the gun up like this. And I've also played with the stock on the belt. For me, it's a little bit faster to have the stock on the belt. And let me give you an indication here. What I'm doing with the lead hand here is I'm actually driving the gun with the lead hand first. So this hand is going to go like this. So I'm driving the gun, which gets the stock off my body. And that's where some of the speed comes from. This hand assists as well, but I really get a lot of the speed from driving with the lead hand and then firing those shots. So I personally like the stock down, and I'll literally line the muzzle up with the first target, right? And fire my shot. That I find a little more consistent indexing of my cheek weld and my dot on that particular position. Okay. Let's see here. Ready up drills in military will discipline you to bang on, off, even when transitioning. I totally agree. Amen to that. Mike, do you have open enrollment? Right now, I'm actually adding probably a fall or an October rifle / PCC class. It'll be in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. I'm trying to find dates because I have a bunch of other contract classes coming up, but that will be in October. FIDC, the instructor class, maybe one class this year that's going to be an open enrollment class. We'll post that as soon as we have the proper dates. Yes, Ken, all of the material that we cover today and then some, a ton more actually, is in the defensive rifle course. Of course, the defensive rifle course covers specifically the context of the defensive rifle. It's designed for self-defense, military, law enforcement applications, where for those of you that own the PCC, the pistol caliber carbine digital training program, that's geared specifically toward PCC for competition. But all of the technical components of speed shooting is the same with either system. It's just the context of what we're using them for, okay? Steve Havey, 45-degree safeties, love them. I installed a couple on a couple of my Wilsons. I didn't have a lot of success on the reliability, meaning I had a problem with arc triggers, getting it to work as well as it should have. But I love the aspect of 45-degree safety. I'm going to actually reinvestigate that because I prefer a 45-degree safety versus a full 90-degree safety. I think it's a great option if you can make it work. Okay. Moving to the left laterally and uprange as a right-hand shooter. Moving to the left laterally and uprange as a right-handed shooter. So if I'm moving right to left as a right-handed shooter, right, I'll tuck the gun and I'll keep it 45 degrees in this position. But if I need to move uprange, I'm going to continue to rotate the gun over, and I'm going to actually have it slightly behind me, and it's going to be trailing, right? So now my muzzle as I'm moving uprange is trailing, so I can break, right? So it might look something like this, right? So the gun comes off of my body, move, 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 contact point, and then fire my shot. So that's typically how I'm going to move in that weird direction, which is horrible, by the way. Eric, do I equally pull with both hands? I am probably pulling equally with both hands, but Eric, I will tell you that when I hook here and find myself really pulling up and in, that increases that pull into my body, and that allows me to be a little more neutral with the lead hand. So if I had to pick a hand, I think that when I'm doing my job, I'm really pulling the gun and holding on to it pretty hard with both hands. As you know, I'm a firm believer in this firm recoil control. I don't think you control the rifle anything else if this is the contact point and the lower body position is built properly. But I did find playing around with the rifle recently, this hooking aspect here and pulling that into my shoulder really makes a difference. And it also allows me to move my trigger finger, really successful and really either slow and precise if I need to, or very fast if I need to as well. Let's see what else here. A lot of questions. I love this. We only had 110 live viewers on this morning, which is, who knows what the heck what's going on. Chester, how? Yes, sir. I am at SHOT Show. I will be there, Chester, on Tuesday through Thursday or Friday, but definitely Tuesday through Thursday. I don't have a specific location. I'm just kind of wandering around. I'll probably be wearing this shirt or something like that. So if you see me, find me. Let's chat and hang out. Say hi to me, please. Anybody going to SHOT Show? I'll be there. I hope to see you. Razmik, good morning. Where's Matt Razmik? Oh, Bob's talking about Razmik. I haven't seen Razmik yet. Maybe he's on. Okay. All right, folks. I don't see any other questions. If I do, I will answer them. Room have stock on or above shoulder. So, Henu, what's your opinion on tactical shooting close range during room edge to have the stock on or above your shoulder? So, I will tell you, at Chester, get on Livefire and send me a DM, and I'll give you my cell phone. I'm not going to put it on here right away because who knows who's watching the live stream. Not that I wouldn't care if everybody on this live stream called me, but so Henu, I think if I go into a close situation, tactical, being in here, if it's let me be specific. If it's very, very close confines, I wouldn't have a problem with bringing the stock over shoulder. I think if I were to enter this room, right, the muzzle would probably be down, the stock would be on my shoulder, and I'd probably, I'd be shooting, more so my defensive rifle, right? So it's a little bit closer to my body. But if I got into things were close confined, I may compress to this position, which is why I practice this a lot, right? I also practice, alternating to the stock under position, so I can maybe reach down and manipulate a door. But if I had to, boom, 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 I could fire from here. So I think that's perfectly acceptable in the context of certain circumstances. But more often than not, the stock is going to be on my shoulder until I get to the point where I have to retrieve it from my shoulder and pull the gun closer to a different position. And I do shoot a lot from here, practice a lot from here, but I wouldn't necessarily enter a room like that. I may, if I had to peek my light in a closet, I may go over my shoulder to keep someone from being able to grab that muzzle. I may adjust that position a little bit. And Rudy, you're welcome. Jim, you're welcome. Chris, I'm going to be in Las Vegas next week, Tuesday through Thursday, actually. Okay, that's all I have, folks. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about lower body structure, the importance of the hips being square, which keeps the shoulders square. If the shoulders are square, then if possible, you can center the stock on your body, and the more centered it's going to be, the less it's going to turn your body in recoil. We talked about the working hand, right? And the operating hand. The working hand lives on the pistol grip. It does all the working of the trigger and the safety and everything else. I'm sorry, that's the operating hand. The working hand lives on the front of the gun. It does the work. It manipulates the charging handle. It grabs magazines. It works and drives the gun left to right? So the operating hand operates the controls, the primary controls, 1, 2, 3. The working hand does all of the work. We also talked about the upper body structure, how important it is to have the shoulders forward of the hips. And we talked at length about drop, drive, pull, press, and then how you may work, some of those technical components in your dry fire and your live fire drills. Don't forget, work that safety. Learn to manipulate the safety. It's really a critical component. And keep in mind that when we're talking about speed, it's a byproduct of two things: moving the gun fast, getting the gun up to your shooting position as fast as you can physically move it. And number two, building a cheek weld on the gun as quickly as possible. The sooner my cheek is in position on the stock, if I'm using an optic and not a laser or whatever else, the sooner I'm going to be able to see the dot or the sights, and the sooner I can see that and dictate that I'm aiming the gun enough to get a hit, the faster I can fire the shot. So if you want to work on real speed or find out where real speed it comes from there. Okay. Kenneth, left-handed and right-handed rifle. I mean, I work a lot of left-handed with a right-handed rifle. The key component there is going to have an ambi safety. They do make left-handed systems in the AR platform. There's one company who's the company, I'm drawing a blank, that specifically makes left-handed systems. I would really look into that. Of course, Wilson Combat doesn't make a left-handed system. So in my case, when I work left-handed, I have to learn how to reach up and release the magazine with my right thumb, but I can manipulate the safety because I have an ambi safety on the gun, which I'm a huge fan of, an ambi safety on an AR type system. Okay. Oh, damn. Thank you, man. It is a cool shirt. All right, folks. I don't see anything else. Thank you so much for jumping on and watching the live show. And next week, no live show. We'll be at the SHOT Show in Vegas. So those of you that are there, great. Once again, those of you that are watching this and are not on Livefire, jump on Livefire Social. It's 100% free. Give me a follow. Give me a DM. Say, Mike, I saw you on the Facebook Live. Those of you that are on Livefire that you're just jumping on, or maybe watching this and want to see more details or watch it without having to be on the Facebook, all of the replays are on Livefire. I'll have this one on probably by today in a couple hours. So that's all I have, folks. Thanks for joining me. I will post the next live stream or live event on the Facebook page. It'll be the week after next. I'm not certain what we're going to work on then. If you have something that, as you're watching this right now, that you'd love for me to focus on, low light, one-handed shooting, we've covered a lot of the material, something different, the mental game, type it in the comments. Say, hey, man, I'd really love this. If I see a comment that indicates that there's one subject that more people that are interested in than others, maybe we'll do that. So not next week, but the following week. Check out the events page. Set your calendar, 7:30 a.m. on Wednesday mornings. I hope to see you there, folks. That's all I have. Until then, train hard.